7th grade science 12.4, 12.4. And still talking a little bit about forestry and the forest functions. All right, so a forest would be a carbon sink. All right, so it sinks a lot of carbon dioxide or carbon, and then we would be a carbon source, people in general, because an object that produces a large amount of carbon dioxide would be a carbon source, and then a carbon sink would be something that actually takes in the carbon dioxide. So of course a forest would be a carbon sink because it takes in that carbon dioxide, gets rid of it for us, and then of course produces lots of oxygen for us to be able to breathe. So what are some functions of the forest? Functions of the forest. You will see that again. Functions of the forest. And you see that again also on your notes to write it down. Basically, one important function of the forest is to assist in photosynthesis, to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. That's one. To add back the amount of oxygen that we need. That's two. All right, so to give us oxygen, to remove carbon dioxide. That's two different functions of the forest for us there. And then in addition to filtering the air, it also filters the air. It also filters the water from the ground. Think of how it goes into the ground, it's dirty and whatever, and then it comes back up through the roots and all that, and then evaporates back into the air. And so it's basically filtered that water in that process, and then it filters the air for us as well. They also increase the ability for the land to be able to hold water. Can you imagine if we didn't have any trees and if it rained, like where would the water go? You know, we would have lots more flooding there. So it helps the land to be able to hold the water. And they help regulate the weather by blocking out the wind. So they help to block the wind and regulate the weather in that way. I know there's more than that. Let me look. Where's the other one that I wanted? All right, so produces oxygen, removes carbon dioxide, filters the water, filters the air. It increases the ability of the land to hold the water. It regulates the weather by blocking the wind. These are the others. Protects the smaller plants on the forest floor. All right, so it protects the smaller plants there. And then, of course, it protects forest animals by providing homes, food, and that kind of thing for the forest animals. So those are the different functions of the forest. Why are trees such a great renewable resource? Because they can be planted again. They're not as good of a resource as, let's say, bamboo. Bamboo can be, or even maybe water, because it can be like, you can use the same one, right? The bamboo, you just cut it down, it keeps growing. Water, you just reclaim it. But for a tree, they are still a renewable resource because once we cut it down and remove it, we can replant it and be able to get more trees. So it is considered one of our greatest renewable resources there. All right, last but not least, harvesting, tree harvesting. So one of the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? Jobs. It's not really what the word I was looking for out there. Industries. That's what one of the biggest industries would be harvesting trees and logging or that kind of thing, because we use so much wood. That's a really, really lucrative business, or makes money is what that means. And so tree harvesting, so there's some different methods of tree harvesting. A lot of times people would just come in and do what they call clear cutting. They just go in an area and they just cut it all down. And they realize it's probably not the best way of doing it. Now, sometimes they'll do it to reestablish a new stands, which they call a tree stand. And so, sometimes they can still use clear cutting, where they just come in, they take everything in that area, and then they'll replant, and they'll be able to take it again in 20, 30, 40 years, depending upon the types of trees that they plant. So that's clear cutting. Seed tree method, this is going to be mainly used for trees that produce seeds scattered by the wind, and they're going to need a little bit more sunshine. And basically, they'll see, okay, these are really good stands. There's like 10 or 15, 20 trees in this one area. They're really great trees. They would have more than that, but let's just say they say that. All right, these are great trees. We're going to take that. So they'll go in, they'll take out all of the small stuff around it. So the little saplings, they'll take those and basically allow those trees to just be able to, or they'll remove the competition and be able to really let those trees get all the nutrients and the water and the sun that they need. So that's the seed tree method. And you can look on page 455. It kind of helps you to see those little pictures there. And then you have the selection method, the selection cutting. This is basically, they'll select these certain trees. They'll go into a forest, select certain trees that they say, oh, those look good. Let's take those. And the difference on that is they're not really worried as much about the competition and all that. They're going to leave all that in there. Because then those will begin to grow after they take the big trees out. And so that's called selection cutting. They go in, they select certain ones that they want to cut sporadically. All right, yeah, I use that word on this, sporadically. That means randomly. Shelter wood. Shelter wood is a combination of seed tree and selection cutting. All right, they'll do a series. So they'll go in at first, and they'll let me kind of, just so I don't get these mixed up here. Basically, they'll go in and they'll do the first cutting. That just removes the poor quality trees to allow the others to be able to grow the best. Then they'll go in and do more of a selection cutting. They'll leave still some of the others, but they'll do some of the bigger, better ones, and they'll go ahead and cut those. And then the third time, they'll come in and get the other stuff after it's been allowed to grow there. So those are just some different ways that they harvest trees, and 4 major ways that you will need to know there. All right, so I think that's all. Let me just tell you, because tomorrow's work, I think it's Wednesday for you guys. It tells you to read, I think, or maybe it might even be Thursday and Friday. It tells you to read 456 through 461. All right, so each page has like 4 different little things about trees. So let's say the first one is Eastern Red Cedar. All right, so you would just write Eastern Red Cedar right there, and then you read it. The tree is the most widely distributed conifer in the United States. The fruits are pale blue and scale-like. The reddish wood is this tree. This tree is used for posts and shingles. Yada yada yada. You pick out one thing that you think is cool from there. So it has a reddish wood. All right, Eastern Red Cedar has a reddish wood. That's what you have to do. All right, so for each of these trees. That's what you'll want to do, and then snapshot a picture to me and send it to me. And I give you 2 days to do that for each of these, like 456 to 461. So you might want to do it all at one time, or you might want to do 3 pages a day. Whatever, it's up to you. All right, so I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you later.